You see, we're so used to having headphones, and usually on your headphones, it's the same sound going in both ears. But if you ever go to nature, really spend time in nature listening, you'll realize that from different angles, from different sound sources, rarely do both your ears hear the same thing. And that's what I realized today. So I will show you guys something. You guys check this out. Listen closely. Hopefully it shows through this camera. I literally just used my cell phone, so I don't know if you guys could hear what I heard today. So many different angles, so many different sources. Even from a same source, the sounds are coming from different directions and sound different depending on which ear. You can probably hear the cars go by in front of me. And I think if you wanted to break down why those sounds are so important for the brain, the first thing, of course, is that they're soothing and they're different than your city sounds. They're soothing and they're different. So that in itself is stimulation for the brain. What else is different from those sounds? Well, the first thing is they're multi-directional. Wherever I look, wherever I stand, the sounds are going to be different. So visually and auditorily, there's a combination that you don't get in your day-to-day when you're on your headphones or when you're on your phone. Think about me if I'm listening from a device like this, right? The audio is always going to come from the front. And then if I have my headphones, no matter where I look, the audio is still going to be the same. So there's this auditory visual mismatch in our day-to-day. In society, we've created a phenomenon to our brain where if you have headphones in, no matter where you're looking, your visual field is changing, but your auditory stimulus is the same. And conversely, if you are listening to a device that's playing sound out loud, both your visual and your auditory fields are staying kind of constant, at least the foreground. This is not to say that's bad or good. It's just important to be aware how our modern society treats the combination of visual and auditory stimulus versus how it is in nature, how humans have developed for hundreds of thousands of years. The next important thing is what I call cross-laterals or bilateral. In nature, if you don't have headphones, what's going into one ear is very different from what's going into another ear. And that's constantly changing as you walk, as you look, point your head in different directions. In our modern day, if you have a device playing a sound or you have your headphones on, unless it's some really advanced speakers, usually you're hearing basically the same thing in both your ears. As you know, we have two lobes in our thinking brain, and it takes a lot of brain power to put it together. That's why cross-lateral exercises, aka activities that make your brain work together, are so powerful for brain growth, for brain healing. What I've been realizing is that it's too simplistic to say that modern society is too stimulating. An actual better way of describing the difference between modern society and, let's say, a more nature way of living is that in nature, you stimulate a lot more of your brain, whereas in modern society, you overstimulate more specific part of the brain. In nature, you're stimulating more of your brain to work together. But in modern society, you're overstimulating more specific parts of your brain. So again, it's not as simple as nature good, modern society bad. It's just you're doing different things with your brain, your visual field, your auditory field, etc. I've been trying EMDR therapy for the past few months. And the person who invented EMDR therapy, what she realized was she would walk in nature And in nature, she would look around because, again, trees, birds, deer, etc., dirt, she'd be looking around with her eyes. And that's how she came up with the eye movements. For those of you who don't know about EMDR therapy is pairing eye movements or other forms of bilateral stimulation with your processing and reprocessing and reframing of memories. A lot of people use EMDR to help them with trauma. So then the question is, why does EMDR therapy work? Well, it seems to be, again, related to the cross-lateral, the bilateral stimulation. It's working more areas of the brain than usual when it's related to whatever memory or whatever stimulus. Now we go back to going into nature. Why is it that when so many people need to have breakthroughs in life, so many people need to find new answers, they go into nature for a little bit? If you think about the realization I had this time about auditory and visual stuff, and then you also think about what I just told you about EMDR, why I think nature is so helpful, especially if you spend long enough time in it without distractions like devices. It's visual, it's auditory, it's basically using all of your senses. You have more than 5 senses, by the way. It's using all of your senses, and it's forcing all of them to synthesize and work together. It's forcing the entire brain to communicate. And that's a way to help your brain find new insights, analyze existing things with new insights, and in general, just do things and think about things that you never thought you could. How can we apply this in society? Let's say you don't have time to go into nature, or you just want to do a quick cross-lateral tune-up of your brain. I think we just created a new word. What if you wanted to do a new cross-lateral tune-up of the brain? What can you do? Knowing that if you put in headphones or you just play sounds from a laptop or a device, it's probably not sufficient enough for your brain to really talk to itself the way that it would talk to itself in nature. Just with the realization, now we're trying to apply it. So obviously I don't have all the answers, but here's a thought for you guys. A lot of you guys can get these ambient sounds, these soothing sounds on your devices. Now the issue is, after everything we talked about, notice this is just one source, right? It's only from one location. If you have your headphones on, then you literally have both your ears taking in one sound. That's not how nature works. So with a similar sound that you might hear in nature related to this source, and you put it together. So this is kind of replicating if you have one source, like all those little streams, waterfalls I showed you, how I turn a little bit, I stand a little bit, and it's a different sound to my ear. So if you really want to go overboard, since I'm recording from a laptop, maybe from this laptop I need to play another similar but not the same sound. If you have headphones, maybe plug one ear into this device for this ear, plug your other ear into the other device. I'm sure there are really expensive headphones out there that can really give you the surround sound. You'll have to find some kind of track that's literally recording at least 10 or 15 different layers. Ears can distinguish that it's coming from different sources. If you picked up anything from this talk, it's that one source of sound, no matter how soothing, can't even replicate, let's say, 1% of what you actually get in nature. So this is also encouragement. No matter how many sources to replicate the bilateral type of stimulus you get from your ears, go into nature. Go into nature. Go into nature and really stay for a little bit. Really stay for a little bit, and you will probably get some insights. So with all this being said, I wanted to give a shout out, actually 2 shout outs. First shout out is to Carolina and her dog Panda. This conversation started randomly. I was just needed to get my thoughts down, and I told Carolina about this. And my second shout out is to Jordan, my friend Jordan, who many of you have actually seen on this channel. Jordan went and hiked the Appalachian Trail, the entire Appalachian Trail, for 8 months. I was explaining to him some of the preliminary things that I was thinking about, since he's had personal experience being in the woods for 8 months, being in rain, being in all types of crazy nature. I had to ask him, are my insights correct? And he gave me some confirmation that I was going down the right direction. With that, eventually came this reflection. So giving both of them a shout out. The final thing I want to say about nature in general is that somehow when you're very alone in nature, you don't feel lonely at all. It's the weirdest thing. Our society, we're so surrounded by everything, lack of connection. But why do you feel not lonely? Why do you feel so connected in nature? It's because of all the cross-lateral, bilateral stimuli that I've explained in this talk. As long as the brain is talking to itself, that's 90% of what it needs. Your two personalities, your two halves here, they need to communicate. So what can you do to get it to communicate? If you follow some of my other channels, because I got 2 million channels, as you guys know, there's exercises like this you can do to force your brain to talk to itself. Of course, playing sports is one of the best things, right? Anything that's physical, anything that involves your body moving completely, that's cross-lateral. That's a final reason why being in nature is so good, because physically you're being cross-lateral, right? Walking, climbing, and then on top of that, all your senses are being cross-lateral. You know, this is only a temporary respite, as we say. Go into nature a lot. And when you're in nature, pay attention to nature. Don't be on your phone. Don't be on your headphones. And stay for a while.